Alright, so today we're going to talk about more build ideas and advice. I've been messing around with various building techniques, so in this video, I'll be sharing the different things that I learned to give you guys some ideas on how to improve your base. So the first one is going to be the best way to set up different NPCs in your base. Normally, if you want to trade with NPCs, you're gonna have to visit them in their town and trade with them over there. But a really good alternative is that you can actually make it so that the NPCs are all waiting for you in your base. Step 1, you're going to build a 3x3 area and then you're going to make a platform on top with the same size. Next up, you're going to break the tile at the center and then go ahead and place a viewing cage because that is how you're going to keep the NPCs. At this point, you are still not able to interact with them from outside, so you have to follow a few more steps to be able to trade with them. You are going to place a bed very close to the viewing cage, and then you also have to build a roof on top of it so that you can actually sleep on the bed. Next up, you are going to build walls like this, and that is going to let you enter the viewing cage from below. And to go back outside, all you have to do is to sleep on the bed and get down. It can be a little bit tricky to find the right angle so that you can actually sleep on the bed, but once you find it, you just have to remember where it was and you can pretty much do it with no problem every single time. After this, you are basically finished making the structure, and now all you have to do is to capture the different NPCs that you need and put them inside the viewing cage. I recommend capturing the two vendors over at the small settlement because you can buy and sell random pals from one of them, and the NPC wearing red is going to sell items like different medical supplies and other important crafting materials. I also recommend capturing the black marketeer, especially if you're trying to look for pals with specific passives. And you might also want to get the vendors from the dune shelter because you can buy ammo from them and also a bunch of crafting materials. So aside from this one, I've seen another method where you basically put a ton of gigantic pals inside the viewing cage so that when you place the NPC, they will actually spawn outside. But the only problem with this is that the NPC will just go back in the viewing cage when you re-enter the game. So overall, the structure that I showed you is going to be a lot better. Just make sure that you're building it in an area where you don't need to build anything above the viewing cage. We actually can't build on top of the viewing cage, so that is the only downside. Alright, so the next one is going to be about extending a structure beyond the support limit. A lot of you probably know that you can only extend an elevated structure up to a certain point. But even if you can no longer extend the structure, there's actually a few ways to get around this problem. So the first one is by using another foundation. If you are extending a structure and you are using flat roof, you can place a foundation directly beside the roof, and if you do it precisely enough, you can make it look like the roof and the foundation are all in one piece. The foundation is not going to automatically clip onto the roof, so you have to manually do it and place the foundation as precisely as possible. This was very helpful when I was building my house beside the cliff because I could only extend the platform by so far, and so I had to use this method to get the right size. Another way you can extend a platform is by understanding how the structure limit works. The main thing you need to know is that elevated structures can only be extended by 2 tiles away from the supporting foundation. But the more foundations you add, the more you can extend the platform. There is also no limit to the vertical distance of the foundation and the platform, so you can build a platform on whatever height that you want as long as the game allows it, and the same principle is still going to apply. Knowing this principle will let you connect different structures like this, where you wouldn't normally be able to connect 4 pieces of roof in a straight line, not unless you understand how the structure limit works. So moving on, the next one is about getting creative with different furniture in this game. If you want to make your base look more interesting, you should definitely try to mess around with different furniture combinations because that will give your base a very unique and interesting look. I'll be giving you some examples of the ones that I really like, but I also encourage you to experiment because you will most likely find other combinations that will also look really good. So the first one is going to be a round table with a feed box on top. I think that this looks way better than putting your feed box on the ground because it gives your base more personality, and you can really mess around with this to make it fit the style of your own base. I have this one over at my beach house, which is still a work in progress, but I think that it looks really good, especially in front of this drink bar that I have. For the next one, I like how it looks when you stack a bunch of wooden stools together because it looks like wooden support beams when you put it in a corner of a structure. You can really get creative with how you would want to use this, so it doesn't always have to be a support beam for a structure. If you have seen my other video, I also used a bunch of wooden stool to make the mast of the pirate ship base, and in my opinion, it just looks really good. You can have different combinations of the regular wooden stool, and the taller one which is the wooden bar stool. You also have the antique stool, and the iron side table is also a great option for placing it at the very bottom. And so moving on, the next one is probably the best way to put railings on your base, and that is by lining up wooden benches. And this is going to look great on the front porch or just any outdoor part of your house because it makes the platform look a lot less flat. What I like to do is if the wooden bench is overlapping or if it's not long enough to cover the whole distance, then I will just place something like a houseplant just so there's something to fill up the empty space and possibly make this part of the house look better. One more thing I want to point out is that if you are having trouble getting the wooden benches to perfectly cover the whole distance, then I recommend increasing the gap between them in small increments until you find the right one. You can also try to add small objects in between, like a potted houseplant, and that should also look really good. Whenever you are trying to decorate your house, try not to get fixated on the furniture tab, because other items in other categories also look really good. Going back to my beach house, I actually used different storage items to decorate the inside of my drink bar. I used wooden barrels, an iron wall shelf, and a regular wooden shelf. I also placed a wooden barrel shelf on the right side because that part of the structure kind of looked empty. And one more thing is that you can try to use defensive walls as a decorative item. And for this one, I mainly use this to cover up some parts of my base that don't look that good. Over at my house on the side of the cliff, I have this fishing dock and behind it is a bunch of wooden foundations. I personally don't like how it looks, so I decided to place a bunch of defensive walls to cover them up. The only thing I don't like, and hopefully they fix it soon, is that when you place any type of vine on the defensive wall, it's actually going to be stuck in the same area even if you break the defensive wall. It's actually very unfortunate because the defensive walls look better with vines, but because of this bug, I can't recommend using vines because you have to commit, otherwise you're gonna be stuck with floating vines in your base. With that being said, that is pretty much everything I have for this video. If you found this video useful, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.